I am definitely on the other side of it, for sure. There was a lot of the last 3 years have been definitely this fog. I've but one thing I've always known, everything happens for me. It doesn't happen to me.
Okay, you need to say that again.
Everything happens for me, not to me.
Okay, what does that mean?
So everything's happening for my highest good. So no matter what I'm going through, there's a reason behind it. It's not that the world is against me. That victim mentality that a lot of people, and it's normal. It's normal to wonder why? Why me? What did I ever do to deserve this? Because no one signs up for that.
Mhm.
But how do you switch that perspective? And I realized that every test, you can only have a testimony if you have a test. A testimonial comes from that test, that you're in the fire, you're dealing with all the mess, and you come out of that. But that testimonial is for somebody else. What I've walked through is not for me. It's so I can share that with other people to give them hope that there is a silver lining. There is you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you will come out stronger at the end of the day.
I love that. What this reminds me of is we have a choice how we navigate through situations.
Mhm.
And we don't often see that choice. And so it's the epitome of, that opposite where it's really, and I don't want to diminish anything that anyone is going through because
Absolutely.
there is a lot of
Mhm.
tough things.
Mhm.
My divorce was probably the toughest thing I ever went through. I can't even imagine putting and dealing with small children through the death of their father. Welcome to the Karas Wright Show. I am Karas Wright, and I am thrilled to be having this conversation today. During the past week or two, I've noticed in both my one-on-one coaching, my consulting, and my group programs, a narrative that is starting to show up, especially with women business owners and women senior leaders, about how we get caught with the stories inside our heads that start to pull us off of being on brand when we are leading ourselves and others. And so I'm thrilled to have MadhuraJoshi here from Ignite Your Inner Potential. And if there was somebody who is my sister from another mister, it is you, Chica, because we have so many shared experiences in life. And so tell us a little bit about what you do to help empower women in leadership.
Thank you, Karis. I'm so excited to be here because this is my jam. This is
yeah,
what I'm excited about. Well, how I work is I work with women to really empower them into tuning into themselves and leading through the chaos, and how to do that in a framework that I created called Calm. And because we as women, we wear many, many hats, so many different hats, and we're constantly jumping from one chaotic situation to another. And how do we lead with that? How do we manage when chaos is constantly around it, whether it's work with our kids, whether it's work, our partners, our parents, whatever that looks like? So, how do we lead in those moments in a calm, more grounded fashion without letting the chaos take us out completely?
Going from chaos to calm and being grounded. That sounds like the dream, Madhura. Because we are, we run from chaotic lives at home and then at work, and we juggle so many different hats. So walk us through the program.
So, calm is all about you want to be able to communicate effectively, but you also want to be able to adapt. You want to master. You want to also have a legacy. And you have to have clarity in that communication as well. So that's that framework. When you're clear on where you're going and you know where you're going, then you can communicate effectively. You have to be adaptable. If you're not adaptable in the crazy world that we live in, change is the only constant thing in our life. So we have to change.
Okay, let's pause here because I want you to come and tell us a little bit about the origin story of what got you here. Because I think this is not just a framework that you've created. It is born out of trials and tribulations and being in the chaos yourself.
Yes. So the origin story of this, actually, it was 3 years ago when my life as I knew it was turned upside down, and I had to walk my children through the death of their father. And no one teaches you that.
Yeah.
That type of leadership, it's your self-leadership at that moment. And that's probably the most chaotic scenario that has ever happened. And if I fast or rewind even more, is that in 2020, because I was not leading myself, I landed in the hospital with gallbladder surgery, emergency gallbladder surgery. So I didn't lead myself. I was abandoning myself, putting everybody else in front of me to only find out I was at death's door. Fast forward, having to deal with how do you walk your children through that moment? How do you explain to them, oh my gosh, this is how dad is going to look in a coffin, their grief along with your own grief? Because that piece is huge. And when you don't know how to really lead in that moment, you'll fall apart. But you have to hold it together because there's two young children looking up at you going, okay, how do I move through this in this moment that feels so big? What's next? And so from that came calm. And it's been 3 years in the making, and I've worked with clients and I've talked about it, but I didn't really have the framework. And it wasn't till earlier this year when I was at Platinum in Orlando with eWomen that framework kind of came to mind, because I realized that's what I help women do. It's leading in the chaos and how to stay calm in that moment.
Yeah. The experience that you had, I don't want to diminish that because there's a lot of grief that you had to navigate through yourself while also supporting the kids through and navigating a new way of living,
Yep.
which is different. Before we dive into the essence of calm, how are you doing now as you've worked through it?
I am definitely on the other side of it, for sure. There was a lot of the last 3 years have been definitely this fog. But one thing I've always known, everything happens for me. It doesn't happen to me.
Okay, you need to say that again.
Everything happens for me, not to me.
Okay, what does that mean?
So everything's happening for my highest good. So no matter what I'm going through, there's a reason behind it. It's not that the world is against me. That victim mentality that a lot of people, and it's normal. It's normal to wonder why me? What did I ever do to deserve this? Because no one signs up for that. But how do you switch that perspective? And I realized that every test, you can only have a testimony if you have a test. A testimonial comes from that test, that you're in the fire, you're dealing with all the mess, and you come out of that. But that testimonial is for somebody else. What I've walked through is not for me. It's so I can share that with other people to give them hope that there is a silver lining. There is you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you will come out stronger at the end of the day.
I love that. What this reminds me of is we have a choice how we navigate through situations. And we don't often see that choice. And so it's the epitome of, that opposite where it's really, and I don't want to diminish anything that anyone is going through because there is a lot of tough things. My divorce was probably the toughest thing I ever went through. I can't even imagine putting and dealing with small children through the death of their father.
Yep.
But you chose to look at this through a growth standpoint. And I think that's where that concept of post-traumatic growth comes from, as opposed to that. So walk us right through those moments of, oh my goodness, I know I can't do this for myself. I've got to do it for my kids. I've got to do it for others. And that concept of testimony is for others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in my case, it was a little bit of a different scenario. Not that it diminishes anything of the severity of the scenario. But 11 months prior, we separated.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we weren't divorced. We weren't even legally separated. So I think that was God's way, the universe, whatever you believe in, protecting the children from that huge gap that was going to come after, because the separation had already started. So they weren't seeing him in the house all the time. Like, yes, they saw him every day and that was fine. But I think that prevented it to be worse, prevented it to be a scenario where they would have found him in that moment.
Right.
So that protected them. I think we were very protected, as hard as it was. It's never easy to walk away, especially from someone who's already ill. So those kinds of scenarios where there's also a cultural aspect to it. How do you walk away when divorce is not really a thing that you're supposed to do? And you're supposed to do it through sickness and in health. However, I had to realize at that moment that if I didn't put myself first when I ended up in the hospital, looking back now, my children would have probably ended up with no parents, which would have been a whole other ballgame to deal with. So,
Wow. So you chose to take that step back, chose to a completely different paradigm outside cultural norms to protect yourself, to protect the kids. This moment happens and you are moving forward through the chaos. And what have you learned?
you're stronger than you know. You have something within you that will get you through the hard times. And there's days you want to throw your hands up and cry and say, I give up. But you know that that's not an option because you have two little people. And there's so much life to be lived.
Yeah.
There's so much life to be lived.
I want to draw an interesting parallel because you made an exceptionally brave choice to choose to separate. When it is, from a cultural standpoint, from even just a societal standpoint, difficult. I did the opposite. I stayed. It's more culturally appropriate for a Caucasian female to say, done, in North America, raised in North America, several generations, but I stayed. And he made the choice.
Mm.
And it was really interesting. And so I think it's a really important message for other women who are in a similar situation for you to sit down and say, well, how do you make that choice when you've got your friends, your family, everyone going, no, don't do that. But you're like, I got to listen to me.
It was probably one of the hardest decisions I ever made. Hardest. Because there's a lot of guilt associated with, oh, you're leaving, you're asking for a separation, your children, because society says, oh, children of a two-parent home, it's better for them. What I realized is when you are at death's door, and had that not happened, I probably would have stayed. Had I not been woken up in such a smack upside the head to be like, you can't do this anymore. This self-abandonment had become so huge. And I think we have to look at it from the perspective of, if you abandon yourself, what are you teaching your children? If you abandon yourself, where does that leave you at the end of the day? And when you start to choose yourself, things will work out at the end of the day better than you thought for you and for your family, whatever that next level is for you.
And that's that self-leadership.
And that's that self-leadership.
If you had a different set of circumstances and didn't have that wake-up call in the hospital, what would the advice that you'd give yourself?
Looking back,
Mm-hmm.
if I were to look back, I would still say, I would ask myself, because it was heading in that direction. There was obviously there's always two people to tango in a marriage, as you know. And I think you have to ask yourself, and I would tell myself, really ask yourself, are you living? Are you truly living the life that you know you're meant to live? And is this teaching your children what you want to teach them?
Mhm.
Or is this teaching them, oh, this is what society expects from you, so you have to just do as you're told scenario?
I think it's a really important narrative because we don't recognize, and that's something being on this side of the separation, divorce, and being a single mom and then remarrying. It is about you make the choice to stay in, but you are inadvertently teaching behaviors, what you're accepting, which for our girls is huge, but it's also teaching our boys what we're willing to accept in a relationship. And that's how cycles continue. Now, we both are working through our masters in psychology, which is why I absolutely love this. When you look at it and put your future therapist and counselor's hat on, what have you learned?
I've learned that every scenario is different. I am a huge romantic. I am a romantic at heart, love, but realizing that, you know what, sometimes uncoupling is the healthiest thing you can do for both parties. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a failure. And I think society puts this huge burden on everybody's shoulders that if a marriage doesn't work out, you failed. You failed as a person, you've failed your children, you've failed your parents, whatever societal norms, cultural norms. So women and men stay in scenarios that are not for their highest and best just because they're ashamed of what will people think?
Mhm.
What will my parents say? What will society think? I failed. Instead of truly asking ourselves, okay, have we truly done everything possible? Is there anything else we can try? If the answer is no, then it's okay to say, you know what? Maybe this is the best option.
And so we wake up, we choose what we're going to do, and we look at the chaos differently. And I think that's where there's parallel in the work that we do with leaders, myself more with business owners, but also with leaders, in having that understanding of what does self-leadership look like and how do we actually approach that with others, because self-leadership and how we lead others, it does trickle over to family.
100%.
Yeah. So now let's jump over to the program, Chaos to Calm.
So it's understanding that life can happen,
Mm-hmm.
or life is happening all the time. We as women are going from one chaotic experience to another. We're either in it, we're leaving, or entering a new one. And so, how do we stay grounded in those moments? How do you stay grounded when you end up having to walk your children through a funeral scenario? How do you stay grounded when maybe your parents get sick, your spouse gets sick, you get sick? How do you stay grounded in those moments to know, okay, this is happening, but I can't just stay under the covers all day and eat chocolate and say, oh, okay, I'm just going to stay here for the rest of my life and not exit the house, and continue to move forward. Take baby steps every single day to move towards that next level. And it comes down to really knowing who you are. When you truly know who you are as a woman, as a leader, then it's easier to stay calm in those moments because you have that clarity. You have the adaptability because you say, okay, this has happened. Now what? then you know, okay, I want to create a legacy, because we're all creating legacies. We're not here to just sit here and be like, okay, blah, blah, blah. It's how do we create that legacy when it's the time end of the time for us? What do we want people to say about us? And then we can then master it from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
We start to master who we are.
That is beautiful. There's a real parallel to the self-mastery, the legacy, and the grounding that we need to do to figure out who we are on our own, to also what we do within business. Because you need to have that clarity in order to be able to move a business forward, to be able to create the vision for somebody else, to understand what your legacy is and how they need to move it forward. As a female in leadership and teaching other women in leadership how to do that, where's the starting point?
It comes to asking yourself, who do I want to be?
Mm.
Who do I want to be when I grow up? Kind of question. Because so many times we're so afraid. There's this fear, the imposter syndrome, as we were talking about before, the imposter syndrome of what pops into our heads, where we're sitting there going, oh, well, what will people think? Because we have been ingrained with that since we were very young. Most women have heard, be seen, not heard. Most of us who are in leadership, the things that were written in our report card was, we talk too much.
Yes. Yes.
I would love to see all my teachers and tell them, well, I get paid to talk, so it's a good thing I talk so much in class. But it comes down to that point and realizing that this is our life. When we're younger, yes, we have to follow certain rules and we need to go to school and there's certain expectations. But once we become grown women, we don't know how to switch that off. So we're still afraid, oh, how do I tiptoe around this scenario? Or how do I show up without somebody getting offended?
How do I give feedback to somebody or set expectation without coming off as the B word? That was a conversation I had just this morning with a VP, female leader who is really, she's going to make a huge impact in the world, but is afraid of having that without turning into sounding like a man, wants to keep that femininity. And we've talked, you and I've had a couple of different conversations about that. And so that's where we're navigating. How do you step into the power of being a senior leader and an executive in a position that wants to lead with feminine energy?
And I think we have to realize as women, we're more holistic.
Mm-hmm.
We're more holistic. We have intuition. We have empathy in ways that men don't. They have their superpowers. We as women have ours. And the more that we harness those superpowers and say, you know what, I can be confident and I can provide feedback in a way that is aligned to me. Yes, sure, I might have to set boundaries. And I think as women, we don't know how to do that. True. So when we start to set boundaries and we know when to say no, and we know how to, you kind of have to learn how to play the game in corporate. As a leader, you have to know when to voice your opinion and sometimes when to sit back and just observe. Because when you sit back and observe, you can see things with more clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can provide feedback in a way that is going to actually come across as more astute, more grounded, and more feminine without needing to shout because you want to speak over your male counterpart.
Or just get a word in edgewise.
Yeah.
Because there is that experience of being in a boardroom and being maybe one of two women in the room and trying to get your point across without sounding like you're aggressive.
And I think that as women, we need to own when do need to be aggressive. Like there's a way to be soft,
Mhm.
but there's also a way to be aggressive in a way that doesn't come across as, oh, I'm a man.
So let's go down that avenue for a minute because we both have some thoughts on it. What what would be a couple of pieces of insight that you would provide?
I think if we lean more into our confidence, if we are completely confident in what we're saying, it's not going to come across as aggressive. But if we're unsure and we're kind of trying to pussyfoot around, I don't know about this, or I don't, and trying to make the point, we're going to come out of that confidence and groundedness and come across as aggressive.
Yes, and I just want to clarify confidence doesn't mean knowing absolutely everything about everything because there is a misconception that that is confidence. So I want to add to that it's belief and conviction that helps contribute to confidence.
And as well, yes, it's not, we don't, and to be able to say in that confidence, you know what, I don't actually have the answer for this, but I'm willing to go find out.
Mhm. It's understanding the impact of whatever the initiative, the decision, here's where it's going, taking in the information and being able to come back and saying, here's where we are going. How do we get there?
By having conversations, opening up conversations about where, as women, we're maybe lacking, maybe where we need to build more confidence. Because the more we talk about it, the more confident we become.
Mhm.
It's just like brushing your teeth when you're a kid. It's a habit.
'Kay.
It becomes a habit of, hey, I got to do this more. I got to talk about it more. Just and we see this even in the counseling aspect. We're going to bring that in. Is when we're on the other side of a scenario, it's easier to talk about it
Mhm.
than when we're in it.
I'm equating this to the gym. It's getting in the reps. And so, in order to lift heavier weight, you need to get in the reps, you need to get in on a regular basis. And that may mean, okay, I haven't been contributing to conversations. I'm going to insert one conversation or one insight and seeing what the feedback is and looking at what the feedback is providing without judgment.
And I think also not taking everything to heart.
Ooh, say more about that.
I think that a lot of times women we take it to heart to mean that it's about us. They're saying this and it means that I am XYZ. Instead of stepping back and saying, okay, why are they saying what they're saying? Doesn't mean anything about me. Their perception and their objective or their viewpoint doesn't really mean that that's what they believe about me. So, this, with all the politically correct, everybody's so scared to really voice their opinion. But I think we also need to look at, okay, not everything is about me in the grand scheme of things.
And not everything necessarily needs to be voiced. And I think this comes back to understanding how and where and what's the right time. And so it's picking up on the verbal cues. It's also recognizing, and what you're saying to me, how I'm interpreting that is making sure that you're not trying to say something for just the sake of saying it. And this has been something I've really had to work on in my leadership is understanding when it's additive as opposed to repetitive and understanding what is the impact that I'm wanting to make in that space. And if it's not impact driven or additive, then there's no need to say something. And it is absolutely A-okay to stay silent if you have nothing to contribute. It is not okay to do that on a regular basis.
Correct. So silence can't come from the space of I'm afraid. And I think as women, because we're so afraid to say anything, we stay silent instead of, are we bringing something to the, like, if we're bringing something to the table, are we adding, is there a point to what we're saying? But if it is, we're just going to stay silent because, oh, we don't want to rock the boat, we're not going to change how things go.
Yes.
And I think it comes back to that old adage of, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. However, sometimes if you see something wrong happening, have the courage to say, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't the best way to approach this scenario because of XYZ. So that it's not, doesn't come across as, oh, you're being aggressive or you're the B word or everything under the sun, because that's what happens a lot of the time. If you're ramped up and you come in guns a-blazing, it's taking that step back, saying, okay, I need to speak about this. I need to address this concern, but do it in a way that you would like. If this happened to you, how would you like to be addressed in that moment?
This is bringing up the concept of the grounding. And so it's understanding what is the situation that you're walking in, whether it's the boardroom or one-on-one meeting or salary negotiations, or in the case of a lot of the business owners that I work with, communication to your team. It's grounding yourself, detaching the emotion from it, being prepared for your own evaluation afterwards, as well as having one or two really pertinent individuals that are going to give you honest feedback. And like feedback that is insight.
And I also think that we need to look at feedback that has insight as a way for us to improve. And also looking at it from, who is this coming from? So if it's coming from someone that you're thinking, okay, this person has no business saying what they're saying,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to take what they have to heart because it's not moving the needle for me. And what they're saying really has no validity in my life. Let it go. Just let it go, because I think we take it and then we're like, oh, the emotions start to ramp up. And we need to, as you said, detach that part and look at it from a very critical perspective that's more grounded in facts.
Yes. Yes. Because so I think there's an important thing that we're missing is that it's easy to say detach, but you do need to feel the feels. And then ask yourself, what is the small sliver of truth that might be in that piece of feedback that we didn't want to hear, so that we can use that for growth, for helping, our kids through those moments, for our teams to move forward, for our community to have impact, because I know community is very important for both of us, um, because it's larger than ourselves. That impacts the legacy.
Yes.
It impacts the things that we are wanting to do that actually light us up.
You've totally, that what lights us up. And I think as women, we don't look at that piece.
Right? We don't look at that piece. And we do need to look at that piece. But what we also need to look at is some questions that have been curated for us. Are you ready to play a little game?
Yeah.
And so we have some random questions that have been sent specifically surrounding this topic. And the first one comes from Lana. How do I show up confidently in my business when I'm still figuring out things behind the scenes?
That's a great question. And I think confidence comes from courage. And confidence is actually an emotion. So, yeah, you're still figuring it out, but we're all still figuring it out. So don't allow that figuring out piece to hold you back. Just do it. The more reps, as we spoke about, the more reps you put in, the more confident you'll be. So if I don't feel confident getting on camera and I just keep saying, well, I'm a little shy, if I don't put in the reps and I'm still figuring out the algorithm or whatever, I'm going to hold myself back. So I think it really comes down to just do the thing and you will become more confident. Use your courage.
I love that. I want to build upon a few things that you said there. One of which is confidence and moving forward and doing the thing while you're scared is different than faking it till you make it.
Absolutely.
It is. It's stepping into the courage and of being okay that I'm going to go into the chaos. I'm not good at this yet, but I'm going to get good. And so I'm reminded of a conversation that I had last week about the language and the narrative that you use, stories we tell ourselves is really important. So while you're stepping into that, I'm figuring things out, it's what am I learning as I'm doing this? And being okay with that failure, that further attempt in learning, so that you are moving forward. And I'm just going to use something that's come up in the last week here. I don't like making calls, and so the conversation was, well, I'm getting better at making sales calls. And every sales call, what am I learning that I can apply differently that I don't want to do and that I want to continue to do? So it's taking that opportunity of, I haven't got it yet. I will figure it out and move forward. Our next question, I love this one. It's from Kiara, and it's, how do I stop shrinking myself in rooms where I know I belong? I know you're going to love this question. I know you're going to love this one.
What a great question. And it's, you belong there. You belong there. So just own it. Walk in as if you own that room. Walk in trusting. It goes back to self-trust. Trust that you are meant to be in those rooms.
What is one grounding technique that you would tell Kiara?
So I would tell her to visualize. So close your eyes, visualize you stepping into those rooms and people are coming up to you and you're magnetic with your energy because your energy speaks before you even open your mouth. So how you put on your favorite makeup, do your hair the way you feel, do stuff to make you feel like you are $1,000,000. Get into that, then walk into the room.
Yes.
Once you do that and you visualize yourself in those rooms, the confidence will come and you'll stop shrinking. Take a friend with you just to make it a little bit easier if you're really worried. But visualize that you are meant to be in the rooms because you just said, you know you're meant to be in these rooms, but you're finding yourself shrink. Visualize yourself expanding, like there's an energy coming from you as you walk into the room that just magnetizes the people that are meant to connect with you to come up and talk to you.
Yeah. I love that. The visualization is something that we know is adopted from high-performing sports. Seeing yourself on the other side of it, having the conversation, doing the talk, stepping into the arena in itself. I'd add to that, being able to vocalize what the fear is out loud to somebody else or the emotion or whatever it is to get it out, and then to replace what it is going to feel like when you're done.
And I think also is asking yourself, is there any truth to what you're saying? Is there a truth? And writing it out and saying, okay, should I not be in these rooms? Whatever you're saying in your head, write it out. And then if you take a red pen and ask yourself, okay, is there any truth to this statement? There's no truth to it. Take the red pen, put a line right through it, and then write in a different color what's the actual truth, to start to reframe what you're saying to yourself.
Yes. Yeah, it's essentially turning that automatic negative thought into a more positive or realistic narrative, and being able to acknowledge what it is like to be on the other side. And then to acknowledge what it is like once you are on the other side of that. And then do it again. And put yourself purposely in that room again and again and again.
And it doesn't necessarily, it gets easier, but there's always rooms that you're going to find that you're like, I'm a little nervous, but still doing it.
Still doing it. And recognizing it is okay. I will never be absolutely in love with this camera right here. It's not going to happen, but I'm no longer scared of it. So it is doing the thing. I'm super excited to have you here. I would love one thing that you would love to leave our audience with.
Trust yourself at the end of the day. Because as a leader, it has to start with you. If you don't trust yourself, it's very hard to lead other people, because then there isn't that confidence, there isn't that clarity. So when you trust yourself and know that, hey, I might not have all the answers, but I'm willing to find out and do it and be willing to course correct. Everything is figure outable at the end of the day.
Everything is figure outable at the end of the day. Moving from chaos to calm, your new program. Where can we find you?
You can find me on all the platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I think I'm on TikTok as well. Like, you can find me anywhere.
All right. And we're going to do that. Madhura, thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.